Welcome to the Eve of Revolution Notes. This is where we're going to continue to talk about the things that led to the Revolutionary War. So once again, let's just clear up some terms here. On the American side, they can be referred to as colonists, Yankees, patriots, and there's the soon-to-be flag. On the British side, they're sometimes called redcoats, the crown, loyalists, and here's a picture of the British flag. As we move on, we're actually going to add terms to both sides, but this is just to kind of get you started. All right, so taxes, right? Who has the right to tax? That's really the big question when it comes to the Revolutionary War. After years of protests and distrust between the colonists and the British, questions arose about who should be able to impose taxes. Should it be the British Parliament over in England, or should it be the local colonial governments? Remember, each of the 13 colonies had their own legislature and could pass their own laws. So really, who should have the overall authority? The colonists thought that their local government should be the one to impose taxes and not the British king. If they were taxed, they would want a direct say in the government. The colonists could not have a voice in Parliament, so therefore they thought that Parliament shouldn't be able to tax them. If their local colonial governments tax them, it would be okay because they have a say in the local governments, but not the one over in England. So military action. To kind of calm all this unrest that was happening, Britain sends 4 regiments of troops into the heart of Boston. Boston was really the hotbed. This is where a lot of the different protests and some of the harshest words against Great Britain was all occurring in the city of Boston. So King George sends his troops into the heart of Boston. The troops were often rude and even violent. And the reverse is also true. The colonists were not exactly friendly to the British troops that were there as well. Small fighting begins to break out between Bostonians and the Redcoats, and these tensions eventually lead to what is known as the Boston Massacre. Let's see. So according to the colonists, who should be able to impose taxes? Is it the king, the militia, the president, or the local government? And of course, we know that the answer is the local government, according to the colonists. All right, and just a quick little sort here. Obviously, Yankees, right, would be the ones that people want independence. A Tory is actually a term of somebody who would want to stay with Britain. Patriot is somebody who wants independence. So is, a loyalist is staying with Britain. Redcoats generally which refers to Great Britain. Rebels, if they're rebelling, right, that's independence. Militia, generally when people want independence. And the crown is a nickname for the king, which would be over here. Don't worry too much about this. We're going to do more of this kind of stuff in class. All right, so the Boston Massacre. It happens on March 5th, 1770, on a cold, early March night. Bostonians marched through the streets, some carrying weapons. By weapons, we mostly mean things like pitchforks and clubs. It's kind of unclear if any of them actually were armed, but for the most part, we don't think so. The Redcoats fired and killed 5 colonists. There are lots of mysteries that surround this event. A lot of details still remain unknown. We're going to talk a lot more about the two sides and what really happened in class. But just as kind of a rough sketch, right, this is really the facts behind it. And basically what ends up happening is that the Boston Massacre ends up being a rallying call for colonists to really rise up against Britain. The picture there is actually a carving done by Paul Revere, the same guy who will later have his midnight ride, we'll also talk about. And wanting to place these events in order, briefly we'll talk, the Proclamation of 1763 comes first, right after the French and Indian War. Then there's a bunch of other acts, and really then the Boston Massacre happens, right? Then the Tea Act, which the Tea Act then leads to the Boston Tea Party, and then because of the Boston Tea Party, Britain imposes the Intolerable Act. So the answer should be EBDAC. All right, so propaganda. After the massacre, published writings and illustrations turned even more anti-British. Some of these publications intentionally bend the truth in order to help colonists' cause for independence. With the support from the people in the colonies, American independence really was just around the corner. Here's a picture of somebody being tarred and feathered, which was a typical punishment of the day, especially for British tax collectors at the harbors. All right, so much of why we remember the Boston Massacre is because of the propaganda that followed. What is propaganda? Is it positive media, award-winning media, news that captivates you, biased or misleading media? Okay, and we obviously know here that the answer is biased or misleading media. All right, and here's a quick little video, and then we'll be all set with this set of notes. So go ahead and watch.
There's gonna be fireworks on the 4th of July. Red, white, and blue fireworks like diamonds in the sky. Gonna shoot the entire works on fireworks that really show, oh yeah. We declared our first trip 200 years ago. In 1776, there were fireworks too. The original colonists, we know their tempers blue. Like Thomas Paine once wrote, it's only common sense. The if government won't give you your basic rights, you won't get another government. And though some people tried to fight it, well, a committee was formed to write it. Benjamin Franklin, Will of Livingstone, John Adams, Roger Sherman, Thomas Jefferson, they got it done. The Declaration of Independence in 1776. Continental Congress said that we were free. Said we had the right of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Ooh, when England heard the news, they blew their staff. But the colonists lit the fuse, there'd be no turning back. They had enough of injustice now, but even if it really hurts, oh yeah, but give us our freedom now, you're gonna see some fireworks. You know the 4th of July is shining, and 56 names underlined. And now to honor those first 13 states, we turn the sky into a birthday cake. They got it done. The Declaration of Independence in 1776. Continental Congress said that we were free. Said we had the right of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, but they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
And if there's one thing that makes me happy, then you know that it's there's gonna be fireworks.
All right, so that then concludes this set of notes. Don't forget margins, keyword. Don't forget your margins and your reflections. Okay, have a good night, guys.